Today I wanted to talk about Killzone 2, which is one of my favorite movies of the last few years. The first Killzone was great, a predictable but surprisingly solid action vehicle for Donnie Yen, Sammo Hung, and Simon Yam. That's all well and good, but despite its name, Killzone 2 is actually a standalone movie. Some of the actors from the first Killzone return, but they're playing entirely new characters. So as far as the viewer is concerned, it's a sequel in name only. Killzone 2 stars Tony Jaa, Wu Jing, Simon Yam, and Zhang Jin, and is directed by Soi Chang. Narratively it's a lot. I still don't want to spoil anything because it does go to some genuinely interesting places, but narrative alone probably won't sell you on the movie. Thankfully, it's not alone, and it's matched with some pretty dazzling action sequences. I love when an action movie does action right, with clear, easy-to-follow sequences, and Killzone 2 absolutely pulls that off. It also does something interesting with genre. I wouldn't go so far as to call it a genre blend, but Killzone 2 actually incorporates martial arts action with horror, and surprisingly, it works really well. It follows a slightly complicated narrative. There's an undercover cop who is put in prison by a corrupt prison warden after attempting to infiltrate a crime syndicate, and a prison guard at that prison whose daughter is in desperate need of a bone marrow transplant. The prison warden is involved with an illegal black market organ sales, and yeah, this movie goes places. Soi Chang has a history directing both martial arts movies and horror movies, and you can definitely see that manifest in Killzone 2. So anyway, all these characters become intertwined, and the undercover cop and the prison guard team up and... Actually, wait. I don't think I should say any more. The narrative isn't particularly ambitious or clever, but it does take some genuinely interesting turns that I wouldn't want to spoil. I watch a lot of martial arts movies, and unfortunately very few of them seem to focus on narrative in the same way Killzone 2 does. They exist to showcase action spectacle, and hey, that's cool, I still love them. But a story to follow and characters that we can care about are almost always to a movie's benefit. So, in that way, Killzone 2 is pretty respectable. Come for the martial arts action, stay for the horror-tinged crime epic. I really don't want to downplay the action, though. Most people watching martial arts movies probably watch for the action, and if that's the case for you, then I think you'll love Killzone 2. There are a few brilliant and badass set-piece fights in this movie, but they aren't just for show. They make sense in the movie and have a real fight-for-your-life feel to them. They make the characters come off as desperate, and frankly, they are. This is life and death for them, and the stakes are high. You can tell the director and action director are pros. They approach fight scenes as just another way to tell a story. A fight can be a narrative device, and a lot can be learned about these characters through the way they move, and the way they win or lose. And visually, it's fantastic choreography and cinematography that make these fights so eminently watchable. The actors deserve a lot of credit too, though. They're clearly at the top of their games, and you can see that skill and dedication represented on screen. I also want to talk about an oddity. I mentioned it a little bit before, but I want to give it a little more time here. The oddity is the way the movie approaches its tone. Soi Chang has previously directed both martial arts and horror movies, and he uses his talents from both in Killzone 2. The reason I call it an oddity is because of the way it makes the movie feel. It's heavier in tone than you'd expect, and more visceral in violence. Even the sound design feels more horror than martial arts. It's not thumps and thuds, it's skin splitting and bones cracking. It's not action movie bass lines, it's Mozart and Vivaldi. It's martial arts as horror, or maybe it's horror as martial arts. Or maybe I'm putting too much thought into it, but there's definitely an interesting blend of genre going on here. And it's pretty much unlike anything I've ever seen before. Simply put, this is a movie that just works. Yeah, it fails in some places, but it more than makes up for its shortcomings in other places. Narratively, it's a bit of a mess, but it's a thoroughly interesting mess. From an action standpoint, it's really incredible what they've been able to do. It's high concept action, and it looks fantastic. And from a genre standpoint, well, this is definitely an interesting mix. I didn't think I would like martial arts action meets horror, but I did end up liking it. I maybe even ended up loving it. So, I think Killzone 2 is one of the most creatively interesting martial arts movies ever. And it's one of my favorite movies of the last few years. It's surprising and does things that I haven't really seen before. If you like martial arts movies, or hey, if you're looking for something new, I definitely recommend Killzone 2.